Good morning. Good morning. It is good to be able to join you live from the sanctuary. Although we cannot yet be together in this building in person, we have all gathered to worship together in a great sanctuary of the Spirit. Our sanctuary is made not of glass windows and wooden floors, but of woven hearts. And so come, my friends, come into this sacred space that dwells among us, no matter how far apart each of us may be. Come into this community of comfort, challenge, and celebration. Come, and with hearts and minds open, let's worship together. The flaming chalice is the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the liberal religious tradition to which this congregation belongs. If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to light it with me at this time. As we kindle this flame, we recommit ourselves to the mission of this congregation, to build a Unitarian Universalist community that transforms lives and empowers people to serve the world. May the light of this flame be welcoming to all who seek a liberal religious home. Our opening hymn this morning is number 131, Love Will Guide Us. I invite you to sing along at home.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide
Good morning. I'm Jason Sikoski, a member of this congregation. Whether you are joining us on your smartphone, your laptop, or your TV, whether you are here in Raleigh or joining us from elsewhere in North Carolina or elsewhere in this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful planet we call Earth, we are glad that you are here this morning. If you're visiting us for the first time this morning, I'd like to offer you a special welcome. This morning, I would especially like to welcome our friends from the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greenville, North Carolina, who they have joined us today for worship. Welcome. I'm from New Bern, just down the road from you there. Here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, we are intentionally inclusive, liberally religious, and actively serving the common good of our shared world. That means whoever you are and wherever you are on your own religious journey, you are welcome here. That also means that as Unitarian Universalists, we seek wisdom and inspiration from many sources, but affirm our own individual experience, and a conscience is the best authority for our beliefs. That also means we are committed to making the world a more compassionate and just, and hope you might join one of our many efforts to do so. If you're new to us, I invite you to fill out the visitor form at uufr.org/visitor form. If you do this, you'll start receiving our weekly e-newsletter. This morning, we have a guest in the pulpit who will be sharing with us remotely. Linda Garcia Sampson serves as the executive director of Forward Together, the UU Justice Ministry of North Carolina. This year, she is leading our state's UU the Vote campaign in collaboration with 16 congregations, including our own. Lisa is in preliminary ministerial fellowship with the Unitarian Universalist Association and will be ordained by her home congregation, the First Unitarian Church of Providence, whenever it is no longer a public health threat to do so. Thank you, Lisa, for being with us virtually this morning. Everyone, please feel free to join us for social hour immediately after the service. There's instructions on how to do this on our website. One of the most uplifting parts for me when I'm at home watching the service is when we meet and greet each other. Even though we can't be together, I invite you to greet each other using the chat function on your screen. Let's see how many interesting emojis we can get on there. Thank you.
This morning's story for all ages is adapted from a Swedish folk tale and from Marcia Brown's retelling of that fable in her book, Stone Soup. There once was a traveler who came to a small village tired and weary from his long journey. The traveler did not have anything to eat and hoped that a friendly villager would be able to feed him. So he walked up to a house and knocked on the door, and when a woman answered, he said, "Excuse me, but I wanted to know if you could possibly spare just a small bit of food, as I have traveled a long journey and am very hungry." The woman looked at him apologetically and said, "I'm so sorry, but I have nothing to give you." You see, I can barely feed my own family. Showing that he understood, the traveler moved on and went to another house and knocked on the door and asked the same question. But the answer was the same. I'm so sorry, but I have nothing to give you. He went from door to door to door to door, each time being turned away. Undaunted by this, the traveler went to the village square and took out a small tin cooking pot from his bag. He filled it with water, kindled a fire, and dropped a stone in the pot. As he boiled the water, a passing villager stopped and said, "Hey, excuse me, what are you doing?" And the traveler replied, "Oh, well, I'm making stone soup. Would you like to join me?" And the villager said, "Yeah," and asked, "Are carrots good in stone soup?" "Sure," the traveler replied. And the villager went home and returned with carrots from his garden to add to the boiling water. Soon another curious villager came by and was invited to join them. She went home and returned with some potatoes. And then a young boy passed by and soon joined the group, bringing his mother and dinner plates from their home. In time, a crowd started to gather, with everyone offering their own favorite ingredient: mushrooms, onions, salt, black pepper, acorn squash. Everyone wanted to be a part of the creation. Finally, the traveler removed the stone and declared, "The soup is ready." And the whole community joined in a feast where there had been none before.
This is the time in our service when we acknowledge some of the joys and the sorrows of our community. If you would like to share an individual joy or sorrow, I would invite you to do so now using the chat function on your screen. It is with sadness this morning that I share with you the death of UUFR member Marty Perry. Marty had been in hospice care since April for cancer and died this Thursday, August 20th, at the age of 62. His family will be holding a service to celebrate his life today at the Cremation Society of the Carolinas, and his ashes will be interred alongside his mother's at Arlington National Cemetery at a later date. The family shares that donations can be made in Marty's honor to Dorcas Ministries in Cary, the SPCA, and to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh. Our thoughts and our prayers are with his family and his friends and all who loved him in this time of grief. As we reflect on these shared joys and sorrows spoken and those shared online, as well as the joys and sorrows and fears and hopes held in our own hearts, let's be together now for a time of stillness and silence, opening ourselves to that within us, between us, and amidst us, called by many names, but known to every human heart, that leads us toward a fuller experience of life. After the silence, we will sing hymn number 396, "I Know This Rose Will Open." But for now, let's be together in stillness and in silence.
I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
UUFR is here today because of the generosity of those who came before us. And if it is to thrive into the future and continue to serve generations of people to come, it will do so because of the generous financial support so many of you provide. We try to make being generous as convenient as possible. I invite you to see the instructions that will appear on your screen during the offertory. It's now time for our offering. Please be generous.
Now there's a reason for the sunshine sky. There's a reason I'm feeling so high. Must be the season when that love light shines all around us. So let that feeling grab you deep inside and send you reeling where your love can't hide, and then go stealing through the moonlit nights with your lover. Just let your love flow like a mountain stream, and let your love grow with the smallest of dreams, and let your love show. And you'll know what I mean, it's the season. Just let your love fly like a bird on a wing, and let your love bind you to all living things, and let your love shine. And you know what I mean, it's the reason. Now there's a reason for the warm, sweet nights, and there's a reason for the candle lights. Must be the season when those love lights shine all around us. So let that wonder take you into space and lay you under its loving embrace, and feel the thunder as it warms your face. You can't hold back. Just let your love flow like a mountain stream, and let your love grow with the smallest of dreams, and let your love show. And you know what I mean, it's the season. And let your love fly like a bird on a wing, and let your love bind you to all living things, and let your love shine. And you know what I mean, it's the reason. And let your love flow like a mountain stream, and let your love grow with the smallest of dreams, and let your love show. You'll know what I mean, it's the season. And let your love fly like a bird on a wing, and let your love bind you to all living things, and let your love shine. You know what I mean, it's the reason.
Our reading this morning is a short excerpt from the book Looking Inward, Seeing Outward by Reginald Ray. It is undeniable that others in the larger world, so beleaguered at this moment in history, need everything that we have to give. But what to give is the problem. We cannot find out what to do simply by thinking about it. We need to gain our inspiration and our direction from much deeper sources. Ministerial Fellowship Committee. So if you don't know what that is, the MFC is essentially the credentialing body of our tradition. But moving into this new place without knowing anyone, and not knowing whether I'd find a parish ministry job was scary. But I very quickly found out that when you have colleagues like James and Sasha, you're never alone. And I'm so grateful to both of them for all the ways that they have been there for me in this last year. So after passing the MFC in December, I entered into 2020 with two gut instincts about the year ahead. One, that this would be a year where I would have to embrace not being in control. And I'd have to be open to whatever ministry presented itself to me. And that second gut feeling that I had was that this is going to be a really, really good year. So 1 out of 2 ain't bad. Little did I know, and little did any of us know, the level of adaptability and resilience and courage that we would be called to this year. Any false sense of being in control, any denial of our interdependence have of course been shattered. And that truth, that we were all tangled up together. Many of us have long known that intellectually, but this year we have felt it deep in our bones. In February, the opportunity arose for me to take over as executive director of Forward Together. And as I've alluded to, this is not a ministry I ever imagined for myself. It is not the way I ever felt called to offer my gifts and passions to this faith. But in jumping into this role this year, I can honestly say that it has changed my life. Just as undoubtedly, this pandemic/election year/racial justice awakening has changed all of our lives. And since February, much of my time and energy has been spent and devoted to leading our state's You the Vote campaign. So if you don't know You the Vote, let me tell you a little bit about it. You the Vote is an unprecedented call to collaboration and mobilization across our faith, to live into our values by engaging in this year's electoral process, helping to build a movement that not only votes love, but fights voter suppression, especially in states like ours. But another thing I have to tell you about UU the Vote is that it is not just about voting. It is about this larger vision of liberation. It is about this historic movement which embraces the intersectionality of racial justice and environmental justice, of our health and our livelihood, and the survival of our democracy. UU the Vote is about all of it. Not only are we laser focused on this election, we are also deepening our relationship to our movement partners. We are deepening our relationship with one another, and we are building organizing skills and capacity. Because the truth is, no matter what happens in November, we have got to be ready for whatever comes next. And we will be. So far, we have answered this call powerfully. At General Assembly this year, UUs in our state join UUs across the country to make 114,000 phone calls to voters in 4 days. It's unbelievable. We have seen our fellow UUs across the country show up for us in North Carolina through our Forward Together weekly Thursday night phone bank. No joke, UUs from congregations in Seattle and Portland, New York, Boston, Virginia, Maryland, All Souls, DC, they are all showing up for us and making calls to voters of color in our state, many of whom have been purged from the voter rolls. And within our own network, our congregations in this state have already engaged over 500 UUs across 16 congregations in nonpartisan voting rights work this year. We have done voting education work, we have advocated for safe and fair elections through our County Board of Elections and through our state legislature, and we have written postcards. 25,000 postcards to be exact. I know because I made the kits and I've got the paper cuts to prove it. And you all, you in Raleigh, have been one of our leading congregations in this effort. Under the leadership of Nancy Moxley and Ginny Batterson, your congregation has involved over 90 Raleigh members and friends in voter advocacy activities in 2020. You have trained and volunteered with You Can Vote, you have done phone banking, and you have written many, many postcards. Out of our 25,000, you have written nearly 4,000 of those postcards, some before the primary election to young North Carolina voters, and more recently in our partnership with Reclaim Our Vote and the North Carolina NAACP. You should be proud of that. And of course, there is so much more to be proud of about your congregation. So much more justice work that has happened in these last 6 months. One of my favorite examples of this, not only for your congregation, but across the state, has been Friday mornings in the UUFR parking lot. And from my understanding, true to movement, it began somewhat spontaneously. You had been supporting Love Wins, a homeless kitchen, for a few years with monthly lunches and Justice Sunday collections. But when they asked for donations for food, because of increased need, Linda Lyles began organizing weekly connections on Friday mornings. It became an opportunity for connection and purpose every week. Gathering and collecting food and having people at a safe distance fill Linda's car. And then something happened. That initial idea had a ripple effect. Other members began utilizing Friday mornings in the parking lot for other social justice activities. So now you have some collecting food for Love Wins, you have others collecting diapers and wipes for the immigrant and refugee collection, you've got UU the Vote out there distributing postcard kits, And who knows what else since last time I checked in with you all. Jim Hurtis, back in May, told me this story, and I found it to be such an inspiring example of creativity that I've been sharing this story not only across our state, but in our national UU circle. And you may not know this, but your vision and your creativity has inspired similar efforts in fellow UU congregations. In this moment of need, you got creative. And you started something as a community, not even entirely knowing what it was. And it has evolved and grown just as all big and small movements do. And this is actually what inspired my selection for our story for all ages today. In our story of Stone Soup, the hungry traveler strolls into town with a big old pot and a heart filled with the spirit of abundance. At first, the people of the village say, "Hey, I don't have anything to give you." And like our culture today, they were responding likely from a place of fear and scarcity. Perhaps in feeling like, hey, we can barely hold it together ourselves. I don't have enough food in the cupboard for me and my family. I have nothing left to give to you. But the traveler had faith. A faith in the town's collective abundance. A faith that the town actually has everything they need to nourish one another, if only they could gather around the fire and watch the soup simmer until they themselves experience that spark of imagination and generosity. Movements are like Stone Soup. You don't start with an exact plan and all the ingredients you need. You just start. You kindle the fire. You drop the stone in the water. And you believe that people will gather. And in being together, we spark each other's imagination and create that larger vision together and offer our gifts and our capacity in that spirit of abundance. That's what we're called to do. Recently, the lawyer and activist Deepa Iyer created a really beautiful diagram which lays out the different roles which are critical to a social change ecosystem. Now, right now, I'm going to name these different roles, and I invite you to reflect on your current sense of who you are, of your gifts, your joys, and also reflect on where we are collectively as a movement. I want you to think about which of these roles naturally speak to you. Builder, healer, artist, storyteller, bridge builder, frontline responder, caregiver, disruptor, visionary. Which one of those spoke to you? Which of those feel true to who you are and what you can give? We've got to do this kind of discernment because it is in being attuned to our gifts and in sharpening our gifts that we can be of service to the movement. But also, with that being said, we also know that we can't be rigid in our understanding of our tools and our roles because this movement is constantly changing and evolving, and so are we. Being a part of movement is a constant negotiation, a discernment that occurs not on our own, but in relationship with the collective while standing around the fire and watching the ingredients be added to the soup, we ask, what can I add? And we must be malleable and open to change. Maybe you identify as a healer, or a storyteller, or a builder, but are called to expand your sense of all the many ways in which you might be able to give that gift to this movement. Maybe you're a storyteller that phone banks, or that fundraises, or that phone banks. And sometimes in this work, we will be called to go beyond our comfort and embrace a different role altogether. And in doing so, evolve in our understanding of who we are. Because in the movement, the larger transformation begins with our personal transformation. Friends, we have 70 days until the election. 10 weeks. 8 weeks to the start of early voting on October 15th. And there is so much more to be done. More poll workers to recruit, more advocacy to be done to ensure that the post office is restored to its full capacity to handle mail-in ballots. More phone calls to fellow voters, and I'm not just talking about strangers, but to our families too, to make sure everyone has a plan to vote in this election, which is not only the most important in our lifetime, but the most complicated. We can't take anyone for granted. Now is the time, by the way, to get your absentee ballot request in. Now is the time. Earlier this summer, when James called me and invited me to preach today, he said something that is like an organizer's dream. He said, "Please, Lisa, feel free to come with a big ask." So last week, when I met with your You the Vote leadership team, Nancy and Ginny, Christina Stableford, Carmen White, Caitlin Phillips, we got together and we discussed James's invitation to make that big ask. And I'm excited to say today that we've got one. I'm very excited to announce today our Turn Out the Vote 1,000-hour challenge. On behalf of your You the Vote team, we challenge this congregation to collectively engage in 1,000 hours of nonpartisan voter engagement work between now and the election. And in the next 10 weeks, we will be offering an abundant list of opportunities to be of service to this movement, to help you get those hours, to help us achieve this goal. By the way, you're the first congregation to set a goal like this, which is exciting and something that I will be spreading the word about first thing Monday morning. Some of these opportunities will include a young adults group event hosted by Caitlin Phillips to continue to recruit poll workers, in addition to the many poll workers who have stepped up, first-time poll workers who have stepped up in this congregation this year. Hugely important. We will have plenty of phone banking through the North Carolina NAACP on Thursdays, 2 phone banking opportunities with You Can Vote every week, a bilingual Saturday phone bank through Mahente. And every Friday at 11, you can join us for Friday Action Hour to continue to do critical advocacy around the post office, the coronavirus relief package, and much, much more. And this information and more is forthcoming to you in this week's Chalice. So don't worry if you're not taking notes. This movement in our country right now is a stone soup. It emerged out of a deep, aching hunger for liberation and a belief in one another. And we are each called to gather around the fire of community and let it spark our imagination. Let us hear it call out our name and call out for our gifts and our capacity to contribute to this sacred unfolding recipe. I know it is customary in this congregation to end our story of all ages by asking a question, which I totally failed to do this morning. So let me ask a question now. What if we actually have everything we need? What if the capacity to transform this nation already exists among us and within us? And the only thing stopping us is faith in our own abundance, in our gifts, faith in one another and faith in ourselves. What if we actually have everything we need? Let these last 70 days before the election be a communion. In this moment where we are so tempted to be driven by fear and scarcity, let us embody abundance and love and generosity. And when we do, the table will overflow with all that we are and all that we can be. And our faith will be deepened and our spirits transformed. And together we will help create a liberating movement beyond our wildest imagination. May it be so. Amen.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. He'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all the afflicted and all those who mourn, and we'll give them garlands instead of ashes. Oh, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land building up ancient cities, raising up devastations from old, restoring ruins of generations. Oh, we'll build a land of people so bold. Come, build a land where sisters and brothers, anointed by God, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace anointed by God, made and create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream.
Thanks for that challenge, Lisa. I hope you will join us for social hour in one of our Zoom rooms after the service. It is time now for us to extinguish this flame and bring today's time of worship to a close. As we return to our lives, may we do so in peace, in joy, and above all, in love. Amen, and blessed be.